Hello, my name's Gavin. This is Genre Books, talking about film for the second week in a row. This is the Marple Cinematic Universe, a short series in honour of March Mystery Madness, where I am pairing my first foray into the works of Agatha Christie with an examination of the many different interpretations of Miss Marple there have been on film and television. Last week, this was a tussle between West Germany and the USSR, two countries which no longer exist. This week, two countries which, at the time of recording, still do exist, the United Kingdom and the United States of America. And I am pitting against each other this week a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom against a dame of the British Empire, Helen Hayes and Angela Lansbury. And I will start today with the later of these two productions. They're both from the 1980s. One I think was made in 79, but this is 1983's A Caribbean Mystery, based on the novel of the same name by Agatha Christie, and a TV movie. Helen Hayes is proper acting royalty. She is the first actor to have the Triple Crown Award of acting, which is getting an Emmy, an Oscar, and a Tony. She's the first actress to get the EGOT, which is the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony. She made her theatrical debut at the age of 5 and made her cinema debut at the age of 10 in 1910 with Jean and the Calico Doll. As you can imagine, a silent movie. But as far as cinema goes for the Marple Cinematic Universe, this is the earliest entry. Her first sound film came in 1931 with The Sin of Madelon Claudette, which I think she won the Oscar for, and in a very long career, 8 decades, she played everything from The Cherry Orchard to Hawaii Five-0. As I said, she was given the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She was awarded that in 1986 by fellow actor and part-time president Ronald Reagan. For a very famous American actor, it has to be said, I really know her playing British characters. Because my first and major Helen Hayes experience came as a child with the 1975 film One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing. One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing is also missing from Disney Plus because of some unfortunate casting choices. However, it's a great film, which I have fond memories of. I love it. And that dinosaur, if you want a little bit of cinema history, turns up again in Star Wars, in the Tunisian desert, playing the skeleton of a crate dragon. And if you want a bit of a Marple connection, One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing also has a cameo from future Marple Joan Hickson. A Caribbean Mystery is available on YouTube, and I will link it below. It's not the greatest version. It could do with a remastering or restoration. I don't know if it has one, but it is watchable, and on a smaller screen I doubt you'll see much of a difference. It's all in one locale, looks a very nice resort, and probably quite tax efficient to record there. It doesn't portray the Caribbean in its sunniest, but they make a good fist of it. Quite how good the original version looked, I don't know. This was, after all, a TV movie. And it's the fact that it's a TV movie and budgeted as such which might be the main drawback to this production. Not that it doesn't have its notable faces, and I should imagine for an American viewer there are far more notable faces. Lots of the characters seem to be stalwarts of US soap operas which I've not seen before, and a bunch of series which I've not seen before. But amongst this cast are actors I did recognise, and one which I definitely didn't recognise but I absolutely know. So we have Barnard Hughes, who here playing Mr. Raphael, but better known to most people as the grandfather from The Lost Boys, or Dumont from Tron. We also have Brock Peters, best known to me as Admiral Cartwright from the Star Trek universe. Also, the Chief in Soylent Green, and Tom Robinson from To Kill a Mockingbird. We have Zakes Mackay, a South African actor, and his Caribbean South African accent is something to behold, but he's still very watchable as the Inspector. He's from films like Cry Freedom, A Dry White Summer, Outbreak, Waterworld, and a few others. You'll know him when you see him. Someone you probably won't know when you see him is Maurice Evans. Not that he hasn't been in a lot of stuff, he had, but his most famous role was as Dr. Zaius from the Planet of the Apes. So not hugely recognisable until he starts speaking. But for every famous face or recognisable face to me, there are others which I don't know. Jameson Parker, for example, who does a good job as the hotelier, is I think his claim to fame is one of the Simons from Simon and Simon, which is a show I've not seen but heard of. The director, Robert Michael Lewis, again is a television journeyman. Plenty of episodes for famous and not so famous shows under his belt. Kung Fu, Mod Squad, The Invisible Man, and a bunch of TV movies, of which this is one. Not, I should imagine, that Helen Hayes needed much in the way of direction. She really does take the role of Marple and, I'm not going to say run with it. She is in her 80s by this point, but she can get up a flight of steps fairly quickly, even here when she needs to. There is a little bit of creeping around. This is a bit more of a active Marple than we saw last week. She plays it quite sly. She expertly manipulates the Doctor to have some fantastic ideas of his own. She is also able to sweet talk the irritable Mr. Raphael, and he does take a shine to her. Someone who actually pushes back on his boorish, bullying behaviour. Some of the supporting cast are very much discernible as being transplanted directly from American soap operas. That's not so much of a bad thing in, there's a little bit of melodrama in Agatha Christie, and it's set in modern day. By modern day, I mean early 80s, and set in the Caribbean, so not unknown to find Americans there. It is that central pairing between Barnard Hughes and Helen Hayes which does elevate this interpretation above your normal TV movie. And Hayes especially does really inhabit the role of Marple and seems to be enjoying herself while she's doing it. I would recommend watching this if you have a free afternoon. I am not sure I would recommend The Mirror Cracked from 1980, a much bigger budget production, one that just seems to be less than the sum of its parts.
She could be wrong, you know.
She's not. I've seen the picture.
The mirror cracked.
On paper, this production should be winning hands down. In Angela Lansbury, Dame Angela Lansbury, we have an actress who, after this movie, becomes very famous as a TV detective, playing Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote for the next 20 years or more. And we have a cast of proper Hollywood A-listers backing her up in this production.
Elizabeth Taylor, Tony Curtis, Kim Novak, Edward Fox, Rock Hudson, Geraldine Chaplin, and Angela Lansbury as Miss Marple.
Very simple. If only one looks at it the proper way.
But let's look at Lansbury first. Like Helen Hayes, I probably first knew her as playing like a English nanny type character in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, another Disney production. Her most famous Disney production is probably playing a teapot in Beauty and the Beast, and she's also in the sequel to Mary Poppins. And she's also in other films such as National Velvet, The Manchurian Candidate, and Gaslight. So the film that we get the term gaslighting from. I would say in this particular role, she's not convincing as the age she is playing. At the time of filming, she is 54, 55. She's playing someone in her late 60s, early 70s, I would suggest. And it's not entirely convincing. The makeup is also a little bit dodgy. It's nothing to do with her acting, it's just she doesn't look old. She looks like she's supposed to be looking old. It's a bit of a difference. The trouble we also have here is that, and you know, this is partly in deference to the books, Miss Marple isn't always a huge part of the action. The film does try to insert her into it a bit more than sometimes the book actually does. But Miss Marple is someone who solves these crimes at a remove. She is taking the testimony from people who are actually there and unravelling the case herself. I think you can film that quite effectively. But the problem we have here is just the rest of the cast is too famous and detracts attention away from what the central thing should be of Marple solving the crime. And this is a proper star-studded cast. Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, Tony Curtis, Kim Novak, Edward Fox. Even the butler is played by Charles Gray, and he was Blofeld. And in Guy Hamilton, we have a director who is normally no slouch either. We probably have Charles Gray in this because he has worked with Guy Hamilton before, because Guy Hamilton directed him as Blofeld in one of the 4 James Bond movies that Guy Hamilton directed. Goldfinger, Diamonds Are Forever, Live and Let Die, and The Man with the Golden Gun. If you want another Bond connection, there is a non-speaking cameo from a very young Pierce Brosnan here as well. Guy Hamilton also directed An Inspector Calls, Funeral in Berlin, Battle of Britain, which had a full-on star-studded cast. But Guy Hamilton didn't always make great films, even if sometimes they were enjoyable. Remo Williams, Unarmed and Dangerous, or Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, if you live in America. not a great movie, but quite fun. This, again, just not a great movie. I think this film is plagued with a little bit too much Hollywood talent, even for an experienced hand like Guy Hamilton to wrangle with. Angela Lansbury is and should be the star of this film. She's Miss Marple in a Miss Marple film. However, the biggest star in this film, and playing a Hollywood star within the film, is Elizabeth Taylor. Now, Taylor and Lansbury were friends, so there's no rivalry here, but there's definitely a tussle for screen time. This was going to be Elizabeth Taylor's comeback film, and it wasn't. You have Rock Hudson, who's a very imposing presence, but possibly not Hollywood's greatest actor. You have Tony Curtis, who is a great actor, but here seems to be phoning it in a little bit. And you get the feeling that half of these actors have come over to Blighty on a bit of a jolly and are having a bit of fun with the material. But not everyone is doing it like that. You have half the actors hamming it up and the other half trying a more naturalistic interpretation. So you have Tony Curtis and Kim Novak really vamping it up as Hollywood monstrosities, and Geraldine Chaplin, daughter of Charlie Chaplin, as the PA for Rock Hudson, playing it a lot straighter. I think essentially this film struggles to find its tone. And it makes it quite difficult to analyse it, because once you start analysing a particular aspect or a particular character or actor, there's nothing intrinsically wrong here. There's nothing wrong with Angela Lansbury's Marple interpretation, but her interpretation doesn't quite fit the spin that Elizabeth Taylor is putting on it.
Lola, dear, you know there are really only two things I dislike about you.
Really? What are they?
Your face.
I think if it has one problem, it's the clash of knowing, sly, hammy performances and earnest, naturalistic interpretations just not gelling together well. The music doesn't really fit either. But there is a lot to like in the production. Certainly the location looks the part. Shoreham in Kent does a very good St Mary Mead. It's much more of a Marple setting than a Caribbean resort, for example. It's obviously bigger budget than a Caribbean Mystery. It is on film. It looks good. Yeah, it just doesn't really work. And that is not to denigrate Lansbury's interpretation of Marple. And that's what I'm choosing here. And as much as I prefer one production here over the other, it is the Miss Marple interpretation I'm choosing. And they're both good, so it makes it more difficult, but I think Helen Hayes just edges it. So, next week, back again, and in ITV territory with Geraldine McEwen and Julia Mackenzie going head to head. So this will be an even finer choice possibly between them, because this is the same series of Miss Marple, but with one actress replacing the other in the lead role. Now, people have their opinions on this, but I have the advantage of not having watched the series, so I will just have a fresh take, one versus the other, with no emotional baggage. Until next time.